Oh, all right, here it goes. Welcome back. I'm calling all the freedom fighters. Freedom from the scarcity, freedom from the system, and freedom from yourself. The time is now. To those who have served, who want to serve, or are currently serving, I salute you. It's time to stand up for yourself and stand up for others, and together we will be liberated to live the life of our choosing, of our own creation, in infinite peace and abundance. I'm Kyle Panter, and like a compass, I point a direction towards self liberation through conscious, co creative, mind heart coherence that will ultimately bring about more health, wealth, and peace into your life. Jumping right into the depths, here we go. In this video, I'm going to discuss 3 keys to free yourself from the conflict within and without and bring you into a peaceful, conscious, co-creative, mind-heart coherent space. How do we do this? We go around to everyone and everything, endlessly seeking the ways to liberate ourselves from, well, ourselves. All the posts, all the workshops, all the books, everything outside of ourselves. To liberate yourself from the system and from yourself, you must go within. The 3 keys to free yourself from the conflict within and without and bring about peaceful, co-creative, mind-heart, coherent space is all revolved around acceptance. The first key, accept suffering. Although suffering is an innate part of this human experience, it doesn't have to take the wheel and lead us away from what we truly want. Get that shit out of the driver's seat ASAP by accepting that it's a part of this life thing. Yes, it can be a big giant pain in the ass. However, it's also pointing us to move in a different direction. Suffering is a way shower towards liberation. An immense amount of suffering is created by creating resistance. Pardon. An immense amount of suffering is created by resistance to the suffering itself. Imagine that. It's kind of weird to think about. We don't want to feel the pain because sometimes it feels like it's too much to handle. There's a lot of suffering going on, unfortunately. The good news is we don't have to suffer too much to grow, expand, and create a life of peace. I would encourage you to look at your own belief of suffering. What meaning have you placed on suffering to keep you where you're at and limit yourself from living the peace that you crave? The second key to freeing yourself from the conflict within and without and bring about a peaceful, co-creative, mind-heart coherent space is to accept sorrow. Sorrow doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It simply means that there was or is a deep attachment to something, someone, and even somewhere that no longer serves. Sorrow and suffering are intimately connected and stem from attachments. An attachment can look like a loved one that passed away and the grieving process hasn't really come to a close. It could be a grievance between a family member, a resentment from ages ago. It can also show up in oneself in the form of an old identity. In my own life, that old or conflicted identity is at the core of my own suffering. There's a space between who I once was and who I know I can be. And in that space of wanting to let go is where that conflict comes in. Something that holds so much meaning or value or sentimentality. They're difficult to let go of. Like that old identity. However, If we allow ourselves to if we allow ourselves to let go, a whole new world shows up. If we hold on to these attachments, sorrow is bound to come up. It isn't to bombard you, it's simply a messenger that says, look, I'm here to tell you it's time to let go and move on. And I can guide you to the next step if you'll allow me. Of course, we always have the choice to whether or not, and it just depends on how much suffering you want to endure. The question is then, how long will you hold on to these old things that, while mean so much, are inhibiting you from creating a life full of peace and abundance? The third key the third key to free yourself from the conflict within and without and bring you into a peaceful, conscious, co-creative mind-heart coherence space is to accept the insecurities. This is a massive one for me, and I'm gonna lay some of them out for you. For the longest time, I've had a balding issue. Yes. I mean, no. And it's nearly always at the forefront of my insecurities, no matter how many times I address it. I can make all of the jokes, do all of the things, and it still is in the back of my mind somewhere going, man, look, you're bald. I'm not a fan because I'd like to imagine myself with a big, huge, flowy head, but you know, what can you do? Maybe the more I keep bringing attention to it, the less I'll feel insecure about it. Gotta throw in there that it's probably because of my freaking hot head all the time. You know, like in the Disney movie Hercules, and Hades has that blue fire head. Yeah, it kind of feels like that sometimes. Not even gonna lie. A recent insecurity surfaced amongst this new endeavor. Another calling for making videos came in. I'm a newbie in the social media realm, especially YouTube, and quite honestly, it scares the absolute fuck out of me. However, with the intention of freedom fighting for myself and others to rise above the matrix, this is a way for me to share my story and inspire others to do the same. Every time I do a video on here, Instagram or Snapchat, I get another chance to surmount all of the fears and insecurities. And it's not easy, especially going live. Sometimes it gets all jumbled and wacky and you gotta bring it back in and it gets all anxiety ridden. The more often I do it and the more time and energy I place into it, the more that insecurity starts to shrink. Unlike my other videos where I've had an ability, and I believe that we all have this innate ability to kind of flow into some information. When that's not the case, when you know that flow state isn't happening, and I'm sure all of you have experienced that at some point in your life, whether it's shooting hoops or in a baseball game or painting or music, whatever the case may be. That flow state, everything just comes together. When not in that flow state, things can get kind of jumbled, and then more scripted stuff needs to come in the sense of, all right, I have to take the time and energy to write it down and revise it a little bit before I present it. That way it doesn't come out in a bunch of different ways and I don't have to try to bring it full circle. It automatically does. By continuing to practice getting in front of the camera and just doing it no matter what is going on inside or outside, I actually feel way more comfortable doing it than not. And like I said, I get another chance to surmount those fears and insecurities every single time. And again, it isn't easy. Thoughts and feelings that surface nearly every time I make or post a video or go live, I have to wrestle with something that looks like or sounds like, who am I to do this? People aren't going to resonate with what I say. People are going to think I'm crazy. How much slack are you going to get? How much are you going to hear? Why do they care what you have to say? How many negative comments am I going to receive? And the list goes on. Accepting that not everyone is going to like what I say, not everyone will resonate with it. Some might even call me names or whatever. As long as I continue to address my own insecurities, it thickens my skin and allows me to continue. Probably one of the largest that came up is, am I speaking from a place of insecurity or am I speaking from a place of fullness, spirit? I get a freaking large head sometimes, as I mentioned, and I topple over like a 5,000 bag of potatoes. Thinking I know better or more than someone else often leads to a tidal wave of hollowed, harmonizing humbling that I often don't recognize and don't tell anyone, but I might even resent it. When I speak from insecurity, it often comes off as arrogance and interruption. When I speak from spirit or fullness, it's like a flow. That tidal wave pulls into ponds of ease. And it can get confusing. I know some of you are like, well, how's it confusing if one is a flow and the other is arrogance? It just is. And that's all I got for you right now. If you know, you know. It shows up in the form of insecurity no matter what comes through. I'm often left feeling like, did I say the right thing? How's it going to be interpreted? You know, things that I can't control and really doesn't even matter. This leads to all the Bob Saget's, I did it again, and not wanting to do it anymore, and really confining myself. So I would encourage you to ask yourself a question: what does anyone else's opinions about what you say matter? And that's for me as well. What does anyone else's opinions about what I say matter? Guess what? It doesn't. Those that hear you are the ones that are supposed to hear you. The rest, pardon y'all, but gallop right on out of here. Those are the 3 keys to free yourself from conflict within and without and bring you into a more peaceful, conscious, co-creative mind-heart coherence. Just to mention them again real quick, all revolving around acceptance. The first key is accept the suffering. Suffering is a way shower that leads towards liberation, and it doesn't have to be so difficult. Ask yourself the question, what meaning have I placed on suffering to keep me where I'm at and limit myself from living the peace that I crave and the abundance that's mine? Second key, accept sorrow. Sorrow is not always a bad thing. It's not to bombard you. It's a messenger that says, look, I'm here to show you that there's a better way, and I can help you, I can guide you if you'll allow me. You can ask yourself, how long am I going to hold on to these old things that mean so much to me, but are inhibiting me from living a life of peace and abundance? And the third key, accepting insecurities. The bald head, the super long tongue, the the not big enough shoulders, whatever it might be, accepting the insecurities and speaking from a place of spirit rather than insecurity will allow you to move into less conflict and less mind chatter telling you how bad or ugly you look or whatever the case may be. You can ask yourself the question, what does anyone else's opinions about what I say matter? Do they matter? All right, that was a interesting one to get through. So there it is. If this is something that resonated with you, like and comment, subscribe, and yeah, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Until next time, freedom fighters unite.